Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to go over what a Pico Remote is. I also want to go over the 9 variations of Pico Remotes available for the Lutron Caseta Wireless system, a few of which people are unaware of even exist. I also want to go over the different mounting options for Pico Remotes, how to program and install them. I also want to discuss the battery life, how to replace the battery, and how to troubleshoot your Pico Remote. Up to 10 Pico Remotes can be paired to each Caseta switch if not using the hub. Now, if you decide to use the Lutron Caseta Wireless Hub, also known as the bridge, you can pair up to 75 devices to the system. Now, if the Pico Remotes are within range and the hub is powered off, they will still control the switch. However, there is no repeater in line anymore as the bridge has been disconnected, so it has to be within the line of sight of the remote. But this will add reliability to your system. The Lutron Caseta Wireless Hub adds many features to the home, such as it allows for the user to use their phone to control the system. It allows them to program timers. You can set geolocation for when arriving or leaving home, allow for voice control when using hubs such as Alexa and other third-party hubs that are compatible. Okay, let's get started with what is a Pico Remote. A Pico Remote is a wireless remote that in this case can control the Lutron Caseta Wireless Smart Lighting System. These remotes can control the dimmers, switches, plug-in lamp dimming modules, fan dimmers, shades, and even the Sonos system. So Pico Remotes use Clear Connect RF technology instead of Wi-Fi like many other smart devices on the market. Now, why does this matter? Well, this matters because if you end up with too many Wi-Fi devices on the network, you can actually bog down your network. With the RF technology, you have little to no interference with other devices, and also it even works when the network is down. These remotes can often be placed almost anywhere, up to 60 to 90 feet away, as long as they're within clear line of sight of the Lutron Caseta Wireless Hub, repeater, or plug-in lamp dimming module. Now, Lutron will say that it only works up to 60 feet clear line of sight. However, oftentimes many people can achieve further distances without compromising the reliability of the Pico Remote. So I decided to take a trip out of the house and attempt to max out the Caseta Wireless Pico Remote. I wanted to measure it and really see what the system can do. I did this test with the hub connected, and I also attempted at disconnecting the hub. I want everybody to know this isn't the most accurate test though, as there are many variables at play. There could be interference, the weather, the ambient battery voltage, how old the battery is, and even how you're holding the remote can all affect the operation. And so just because I'm getting this distance today doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be receiving the same distances. So what I have done is power up a hub and a plug-in dimmer to an inverter in my truck that I'll be powering up this tape light. I'm going to hang it out the back of my window, and then I'll use the iPhone tape measure app to go ahead and measure off how far away this is working from. Now, I was absolutely mind-boggled by this because the bridge is inside the truck. The Pico Remote's battery life is about 3 years old. I'm standing over 566 feet away, controlling the bridge, no problem with the Pico Remote. I was even intermittently able to control the system over 600 feet away. Now I've disconnected the hub, and this is about the best range I can get on it. It was a little too dark to measure off, but I'll go ahead and redo this test and measure it at another location. So I have a hardwired dimmer controlling the sconce, and I have a plug-in dimming module controlling the tape light hanging on the sconce. I programmed all of this using the bridge, and then I've disconnected the bridge so it's no longer being used. What I found is that the first 3 button presses worked over 376 feet. The 4th button press to turn it off seemed to have not worked. I also found that the hardwired dimmer seemed to work about 20 feet further than the plug-in dimming module when in a clear line of sight. One really nice benefit of these wireless remotes is that since they're wireless, no additional wires need to be ran throughout the house when you are trying to add controls to the system. There are also 4 really cool scene remotes, 2 of which I have here. This is the common one you'll see everywhere. It has a memory button to set a scene amongst different groups of loads. And then this remote can actually do 3 scenes and an off for that group of loads. This is by far my favorite remote, and I will get to it later. So let's help you find these remotes. Head over to DIYsmartlighting.com where finding parts has been simplified. On the site you can find all the information you need. It has the standard, Pro Series, and hidden products, as well as the specs and guides to get yourself started off right. The first Pico remote I want to show you is a simple toggle Pico remote. You have a toggle on button and a toggle off button. It can work for a group of lights or it can work for an individual light. The second Pico I want to show you can be programmed to 2 different groups of lights, and once again it is a toggle remote, so it toggles the load on all the way or off all the way, but in this case we can control 2 different groups of lights. The third Pico remote has an on button, a raise button, a lower button, and off button. It looks just like our scene remote that has the memory button, except for in this case, there's no memory button for those of you that do not want that button there. So the fourth Pico remote is programmed the same way as the third Pico remote, but the button layout is a little different. As you can see here, it has 4 buttons all stacked on top of each other, whereas the other remote has the raise and lower diagonally cut across the center. Now we'll get into the scene remotes. For our 5th Pico remote, most of us are pretty familiar with. This is the standard Pico remote that comes with almost every device. It has a on, a raise, a lower, a memory button for your favorite scene, and an off. Now for our 6th scene remote, we have an on, a large memory button, and an off. Now for our 7th Pico remote, and again this is my favorite remote, it lets us choose 3 different scenes and an off for the group of lights selected. Now for our 8th remote, we have a nightlight remote. This is the same as the first Pico remote. It's just a toggle on off, but has a night light built into the on button so that you can always find the remote in the dark. One thing to note about these remotes is the battery life is only good for 3 years. Now on to our 9th Pico remote. This remote is the same as our 5th Pico remote, except it has a nighttime illuminating memory button. This helps for those of you that have a hard time seeing in the dark. You can quickly find your memorized scene to create a nice illuminated pathway lighting in the middle of the night. The Pico remotes come in 5 color options. There's white, ivory, light almond, black, and the uncommon color gray-white. Now when it comes to finding a place for your Pico remote, you have a few options. One is to get a Pico stand, which has a weight in the bottom, so they don't tip over very easily. They don't slide around very easily either with the rubber grommet. There is a clip that comes on every Pico. It has a sticky tab. I removed it. I want you guys to be able to see the holes in it. This can actually screw right up to the wall, and then your Pico remote will slide right onto it. So the Pico can still be removable from the wall if needed. You can also take a cover plate, screwless cover plate, replace these screws with wood screws, stick it around it, snap your cover plate back on, and you'll end up with a nice clean finished look. There's also a Pico remote wall plate bracket that can be used to mount the Pico onto. This is good if you want to screw the cover plate directly to the bracket. It's also good if you want to fill a existing hole where a switch was removed. and is also good to mount next to a single gang switch if you want to mount a Pico next to it and have a nice clean 2-gang appearance. And lastly, there's a visor clip available if you want to put your Pico Remote in the car. Okay, let's jump into programming the Pico Remotes. We're going to start by programming these to a Caseta hub. So go ahead and open up our Lutron Caseta Wireless app. Let's go ahead and hit Settings. Let's select Add a Device. Then we're going to want to add a Pico Remote. So let's go ahead and select Pico Remote. It wants us to hold the bottom button for 10 seconds until the LED begins to flash. It's flashing. We saw the screen change. It wants to know what bedroom we want to add this to, or what room we want to add this to. Let's go ahead and select our room. Hit Next. We'll select that we want to control lights. We're going to add the other Pico as well. It wants us to do the same thing. Hold the bottom button for 10 seconds. Now, we have 2 Picos in the same room that aren't named. That's okay. It's just going to name it Pico 1 and Pico 2. This is also going to control lights. Now I'm done adding devices. Now you can see it's programming the Pico Remotes right now. Let's go ahead and verify what these Picos are controlling. So we'll select Edit Device. We'll go into Devices. And these are the 2 loads that we're controlling, which are these 2 plug-in modules right here. So we'll just save that. We'll hit Done. Let's go ahead and select the other Pico. Hit Devices, and same thing. We're good to go. So now, let's verify that these are actually working. So we will go ahead and turn the lights all the way up. We'll turn the lights all the way off. All the way up. All the way off. So let's go ahead and make our scene. So we will turn them all the way up. We will hold the top button for 10 seconds. And now the LED is beginning to flash. Now let's make a different scene. So we will turn the tape lights down. Now we've made our second scene. Let's go ahead and hold the memory button. And the LED began to flash. So now let's make our last scene. And now let's make a scene on our other remote. So now we'll hold the memory button. And the light began to flash. So now we're all set to go. Now it's programming that right now. Let's go ahead and try it out. There's our high scene. Here's our medium scene. Here's our low scene. And here's our off. Now let's go ahead and try our other switch. We have all the way on. We have our scene. And it doesn't matter how many times I press it, it'll always go to the scene. And then we have our off. That goes the same for this remote. Sorry for the delay, guys. That's just the driver. So I can select it as many times as I want, and it will only go to that scene. So now for those of you that are not using a Caseta Wireless Hub, I do not have these devices connected to any app or anything. They've been factory reset. So we will start by going to a plug-in dimming module, switch, or dimmer. We're gonna hold the bottom button for 6 seconds until the LED begins to flash on the top. You'll also notice that the tape light responded. It's now in programming mode, so let's go ahead and go to our Pico remote. We're gonna hold it for 6 seconds as well. And you see how it responded? That tells me that these two devices are now programmed together. So now let's do our other Pico remote, same thing. So now both these Picos are paired to this plug-in lamp dimming module. We're gonna go ahead and pair it to the other dimming module as well. And that tells me it's programmed. Now you notice when I'm holding this for 6 seconds, sometimes the load doesn't respond. You really got to pay attention to the LED up top. You want to wait till that begins to flash for you. And there we go. So now both these devices are hooked up to both the lamp dimming modules. This would be perfect for in a bedroom. You could put the remotes on either side of the bed. Now let's go ahead and set our scenes. So we want to make this our high, which it already is. So we'll go ahead and do our medium scene now. We're going to hold the button for 10 seconds and that will store the scene. We want to wait for this LED to flash. There we go. So that scene is made. Let's go ahead and make this light off for our next scene. We'll put this light on high. We'll hold the button for 10 seconds. And the LED flashed, so we're programmed to there. So now let's program our favorite button on the other remote. Again, we're going to hold it for 10 seconds. And the LED flashed. So now we're all programmed. So let me show this to you guys. So we have our high scene. We have our medium scene. We have our low scene. And we also have our favorite scene on this remote. Now this remote is an all on with a raise lower. You can also just go ahead and raise it right from the remote. So there's really not all that much to this. You can pair up to 10 devices with an isolated system like this with no hub. You won't get any other smart features, but you will get the wireless remotes, which is great if you just want to add a 3-way down the hall or put a motion sensor in. There's motion sensors available that can also pair up in this isolated system like this. There's really not too much to this to pairing everything, so now you guys are all set to go. So now let's discuss the Pico Remote batteries. The Lutron Caseta Wireless Pico Remote uses a CR2032 battery. It is rated to last 10 years with all standard non-nightlight remotes and up to 3 years on Pico remotes with nightlights. Now let me show you how to replace the battery. So you're going to need a flathead screwdriver, a little small one. You're going to get your Pico remote, and on the bottom you'll notice a little notch. You're going to put your screwdriver right in there and just give it a little twist. Now continue by peeling the remote apart. So that is what the inside of the Pico remote looks like. We're going to want to slip the battery out from this plate. So just very carefully nudge it out. And that's it. There's your battery. So when you're replacing these batteries, always remember to either wear gloves or avoid touching the bottom of this battery, as it'll mess up the battery. Now go ahead and take your new battery and just slip it right under this little bracket, and it holds right in there. It doesn't go anywhere. So now let's go ahead and take our plate. We'll put it back over. Now the thicker portion of this plate is the part where the battery sits. So you'll make sure to put it on like so, snap it back together, and that's it. And it is still programmed to work. It doesn't forget its programming. So it makes it very easy. If you have to replace a lot of these, you don't have to go back and reprogram anything. And that's all it takes to replace the battery in the Pico Remote. So let's start troubleshooting the Pico Remote. We're going to start for those of you that have a smart hub. First, push a button on the remote and just make sure it has power. If it doesn't have power, if the LED is not blinking, go ahead and replace your battery. If it is blinking, let's try moving the remote closer to the hub. If that still doesn't work, let's go into the app, let's delete the device, then let's factory reset it. Go ahead and triple tap hold the bottom button until the LED begins to flash. Triple tap, release it, and it'll fast strobe at the top, as you just saw. So now our remote is no longer paired, and that's all it takes to factory reset the remote. All the settings have been erased. You've deleted it off the system, which removes the device out of the app, and we've actually factory reset the device. So now you have a fresh device to work with. So go ahead and add the device as you did before and retest the system. For those of you not using a hub, go ahead and push the button and make sure the LED flashes. If the LED flashes, we know the switch has power. If it doesn't have power, if the LED is not blinking, go ahead and replace your battery. If it still doesn't work, go ahead and move the Pico Remote closer to the switch you're trying to control. If it still continues to not work, go ahead and triple tap hold the bottom button on the main device controlling the load. Once the lights flicker, triple tap, release it, and the light should strobe again, confirming that the device has been factory reset. So now that the device has been factory reset, let's go ahead and reset our Pico. Go ahead and triple tap hold the bottom button until the LED begins to flash. Triple tap, release it, and it'll fast strobe at the top, as you just saw. So now our remote is no longer paired. So now that both devices have been factory reset, go ahead and repair the Pico Remote to the device and retest the system. And that's all I have for you guys today. I sure hope you enjoyed the video all about Lutron Caseta Wireless Pico Remotes, how to set them up, how to program them, how to install them, and how to troubleshoot them. I will be sure to keep coming out with more videos. I sure hope you guys will like and subscribe and keep checking out more content. And now you guys are well equipped with how to find your parts. I will see you next time. Thanks guys. Bye.